Her daughter-in-law dyed her hair green hours before a family photo. Lorraine Merritt didn't argue. She smiled, posed, and asked for a framed copy. By month's end, she'd own their home, rewrite her trust, and erase their assumptions. They mocked her as forgetful. She documented every word. They plotted inheritance. She bought the deed. And when the eviction notice came, it carried her signature in bold. All right, before we dive into this crazy story, do me a favor, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. The first thing Lorraine noticed was the smell of something sharp, synthetic, clinging to the pillowcase, like a warning. She blinked against the morning light slicing through the blinds, then reached up instinctively, her fingers tangling in strands that felt thicker, stiffer than usual. When she looked in the mirror above the dresser, her breath caught. Bright green, not mossy or subtle, but electric and unnatural neon hue that spread through her hair like spite. It stained the silver at her temples, crept down the ends, and turned her reflection into a punchline. Behind her, footsteps padded across the hardwood. Travis's voice came, with that performative cheer he used for waiters and Facebook videos. "Mom, you're up. You look festive." Dana's laughter followed like a delay on bad audio. "God, Trav. Festive? She looks like St. Patrick's Day came early." Lorraine didn't turn. She traced a single line of eyeliner with the precision of a surgeon, her hands steady. Her robe hung loose on her shoulders, bones sharp and fragile beneath the pale cotton. Dana stepped into view in the mirror, holding her phone at an angle that screamed recording. "It's just a joke, Lorraine. Lighten up. The grandkids will think it's hilarious," Travis said. "We bought the semi-permanent kind. It'll wash out in like 3 weeks." Lorraine met her own eyes in the mirror and saw none of them in there. At the park, pine needles scattered across the walkways. The photographer, a pale young man in his 20s with nervous energy, adjusted his tripod, while Dana instructed from behind like a seasoned director. "Let's keep her in the center. No closer to Ashley. The green should pop against the trees." Ashley lingered at the edge, her mouth half open like she might say something, but didn't. Lorraine sat stiffly on the bench, hands folded in her lap. Her blazer didn't fit quite right. Travis had chosen it from her closet and insisted it was more youthful. Her shoes were orthopedic, and the ground beneath her felt too soft, as if about to give. Behind the camera, Dana whispered loudly to the photographer, "Just make sure you catch the expression. We've got a real punk rock grandma here." Click, click, click. The shutter sounded like a slow drip of humiliation. Travis leaned into the frame, teeth bared in a rehearsed grin. "Family is everything, right, Mom?" Lorraine said nothing. She smiled thinly when told, then dropped it the second the lens turned away. Back home, as the family scattered for lunch plans, Lorraine walked the hallway alone. She passed the grandfather clock Travis once tried to pawn, the faded oil painting Dana insisted was tacky, and entered her study with a deliberateness that slowed time. On her desk sat a small photo display stand she hadn't touched in years. She turned it toward the light, then picked up the photographer's business card, flipping it twice in her hand before slipping it into her purse. At dinner, over reheated pot roast and obligatory small talk, Lorraine said mildly, "I'd like one of those framed, the photo from the park." Travis looked up, surprised. "You sure?" She nodded once. "It belongs somewhere visible." Dana smirked. "Well, that's brave of you." Ashley glanced up from her phone. Her brow furrowed slightly, as if connecting a piece too late. She leaned toward her grandmother as they cleared the plates, voice low. "I didn't know they were going to do that," she said. "They said it was a touch-up. I don't know what I thought." Lorraine met her gaze, studying her face with the same care she once reserved for Caravaggio brushstrokes. "You saw them do it?" Ashley hesitated. "I was upstairs, but the gloves were in the sink." Lorraine placed her fork down without a sound, then rose. The green strands caught the overhead light like algae in still water. That night, while the house settled into silence, Lorraine sat in the living room with the lights off. The photo, still fresh in her mind, hovered like a phantom. She opened her laptop, pulled up the photographer's client portal, and entered the access code Dana had left on the counter. There it was, the group shot. Her, seated in the middle, green hair vivid against the Arizona pines. She clicked, "Order print." As the screen refreshed, a new notification popped up. Image shared. 128 likes. Caption, when grandma goes full Joker for family photos. She stared. Then she clicked. Then she read every comment. When she closed the laptop, her face was unreadable, but her eyes burned emerald. Miguel Renzo greeted her at the side entrance of the law officinate, the public-facing one with glass doors and logo decals, but the older wing that smelled faintly of paper pulp and citrus cleaner, the one where nobody made her wait. I booked us the conference room, he said gently, offering his arm, though she brushed it off with a flick of her cane. You're early. Habit, Lorraine replied, her voice even. Punctuality keeps men nervous. Miguel smiled. Still teaching. She didn't return it. Inside, the room was tidy and utilitarian, an unloved fern in the corner. Chairs with faded upholstery. A long walnut table worn to a shine. Miguel opened a leather folio and slid several documents across the table. Lorraine unfolded her glasses and slipped them on. This is the updated structure, he said, pointing to a diagram. We shifted the property into the trust, but with enhanced protections. The irrevocable clause kicks in the moment you sign the final draft. She nodded without looking up. Good. What else? Miguel hesitated, then pulled out a separate folder. Your son Travishay reached out last month, called twice, then emailed. He paused. He asked if we'd started any probate prep. Lorraine didn't move. The ticking of her watch sounded louder than it should. What did you tell him? I told him everything remains confidential unless authorized, which he didn't like. Miguel adjusted his cuff. He's fishing, Lorraine. He smells change. She picked up the pen. I'll sign now, she said. No sense keeping a wolf wondering where the fence is. He watched her initials curve onto the pages like calligraphy. Steady, precise, the same way she once corrected his essays. I never knew you had such a streak, he said quietly. I was a mother, she replied. Now I'm an archivist. Elaine Boone arrived 2 hours later with her usual Clatera purse like a suitcase, rings on every finger, voice like gravel soaked in sweet tea. I brought lemon bars, she announced, kicking the door closed behind her. But more importantly, what the hell did they do to your hair? Lorraine glanced up from her seat near the fireplace, a stack of folders in her lap. Her hair, though brushed, still gleamed a stubborn green at the roots. Elaine dropped the Tupperware onto the coffee table. Her face had gone stony. Tell me you didn't let that woman dye it without your say so. They did it while I slept, Lorraine said. For the family photo. Elaine didn't speak. She just sat beside her, removed one ring, then another, as if preparing for war. You're not brushing this off, are you? She asked. Lorraine gave a tired smile. I'm brushing something off, just not this. The doorbell rang. It was Ashley. She stepped inside holding a takeout tray, the smell of cinnamon coffee trailing behind her. I brought you the vanilla kind, she said, setting it down on the table. From the place by the post office. Elaine narrowed her eyes at Ashley. And why are you being sweet all of a sudden? Ashley hesitated, then reached into her hoodie pocket and pulled out her phone. There's something you should know. She held it out. On screen was a meme. A split-screen image Lorraine with green hair on one side, a cartoon witch from a Disney movie on the other. Caption. When your inheritance plan includes potions and passive aggression. It's on Reddit, Ashley muttered. Someone pulled it from the photographer's client portal. It's got like 8,000 upvotes. Elaine swore under her breath. Lorraine reached for the coffee. The cup wobbled slightly as she raised it, a tremor running through her knuckles. She didn't spill a drop. People like easy stories, she murmured. Villains and victims. No room for editors. Ashley sat quietly, ashamed but curious. What are you going to do? She asked. Lorraine turned to the window. Outside, the Flagstaff wind tossed the pine branches in quiet revolt. She didn't answer. Instead, she sipped the coffee slowly, her grip steadying, her eyes unfocused but fierce. Elaine leaned closer and whispered, You've got something cooking, don't you? Lorraine didn't blink. Not cooking, she said. Erasing. Lorraine stood on the ladder with one foot braced against the mantel edge, her cane leaning beside the fireplace like a forgotten relic. Her hand, weathered but resolute, pressed the frame into place. It clicked softly against the nail. Centered above the hearth was the family photo, the one with her in the middle, hair glowing green like some kind of cruel highlighter, jaw firm, eyes unreadable. The rest of them flanked her, all practiced grins and performative joy. Dana's arm looped around Lorraine's shoulder like a claim. The frame was gold, subtle, not flashy, the kind used in galleries, where irony had nowhere to hide. From the kitchen came the sound of heels Dana spared, with that syrupy voice she used when pretending to like someone she thought beneath her. "Oh my God," she called out, stopping mid-stride. "You actually hung it?" Lorraine stepped off the last rung, carefully smoothing her cardigan. Dana laughed in that way people do when they're trying to decide if they're being mocked. "Wow, I mean, that's brave. Very own it, you know?" Lorraine didn't even glance at her. "It belongs here. It's part of the legacy." Dana blinked. Right. Legacy. She lingered by the coffee table, glancing at the lemon bars Elaine had left behind. "Well, at least it'll make the grandkids laugh." Again. Lorraine reached down and adjusted the edge of the photo slightly. Not for perfection, just balance. The kind of balance Dana would never understand. Dana cleared her throat. "Travis was saying we could get you a nice canvas version printed. Maybe cropped in tighter? Just you and Ashley. Or even just Ashley, really." "I like it as it is," Lorraine said. Dana didn't press. She just made a tight smile and wandered into the next room, pretending to admire the spines on Lorraine's bookshelf, though she never read a word without a wineglass in hand. Ashley showed up that evening. No text, no warning, just a knock, and then her awkward silhouette shifting behind the screen door. Lorraine opened it slowly, letting in the crisp dusk air. Ashley stepped in, hoodie zipped to the chin, eyes flicking up toward the mantel as she set her bag down. "Is that—" She trailed off, stepping closer. "That's the photo?" Lorraine followed her gaze. "Yes." Ashley stared for a long time. "But why would you want to look at that? Every day?" Lorraine's voice was gentle. "Because someday it will mean something very different." Ashley turned to her, searching for some angle she could understand. Different how? But Lorraine only smiled, stone corner of her mouth, lifting like she knew something Ashley hadn't lived long enough to name. "I still have things to teach," she said. Ashley didn't push further. She sank into the armchair across from the fire, legs curled under her like a child again. There was silence, but not an empty one. Later that week, Miguel arrived with a black leather satchel and an envelope thick with notaries and stamps. He didn't sit, just stood at the kitchen island, reviewing each document with methodical precision. "Properties officially under the new structure," he said, tapping twice. "Holding companies registered. Trust protections are sealed. Travis can't touch a square inch knot without triggering a legal review." Lorraine poured him a glass of cold brew. Not wine Miguel didn't drink on paperwork days. "I trust the new address was listed?" He nodded. "Po box only. No residential disclosure." She handed him a small square envelope. "Then here's your thank you." He raised an eyebrow but didn't open it until she nodded. Inside was a high-quality print of the photo, same one above the mantel, but with a post-it attached. 3 words, handwritten in script. "Frame every insult." Miguel tucked it back into the envelope like a contract. "You're not just erasing, Lorraine," he said quietly. "You're curating." She looked up at the photo, her face bathed in the reflection of its glass. "That's what legacies are, Miguel. Not just what you leave, but how you present what they tried to take." Just then, her phone vibrated on the counter. Text from Travis. "Hey, heard you've been busy. Everything okay?" She didn't answer. She just took the phone, flipped it face down beside her glass, and stared into the photo's reflection, waiting for it to shift into what it was always meant to be. The bank teller tilted her head just slightly, as if recalibrating. Lorraine stood on the other side of the thick counter glass, dressed in her winter coat despite the afternoon sun outside, her cane tucked beneath her arm like a ceremonial staff. "You'd like to revoke all third-party permissions?" the teller asked carefully, fingers poised over the keyboard. "All of them," Lorraine replied. "Effective immediately. No co-signers, no access, no alerts, just me." The teller nodded, beginning to type. "Your son is currently listed as a secondary contact in financial power." "Not anymore," Lorraine said. Her voice was low, but it didn't waver. It didn't need to. The woman behind the counter blinked, adjusted her posture, and continued with the kind of quiet reverence one reserves for surgeons or judges. When the last form was signed, Lorraine slipped the documents back into her leather folder with precision. The green hair was nearly gone, knoutened down to a grayish haze, but the impact lingered in her eyes, sharp as ever. Outside, the Arizona sun cast long shadows over the sidewalk. A mother walked by with two boys on scooters. One of them did a double take, then whispered something into his mom's sleeve. Lorraine didn't hear it, but she noticed. By the time she returned home, the sting had evolved. On her desktop monitor, open to Dana's Facebook page, sat a post with 140 likes and far too many heart emojis. Some people cling to clutter like it's oxygen. Elder hoarders really don't know when to downsize. Number generational selfishness. Number pray for patience. No names. No photo. But the coded cruelty was unmistakable and public. Lorraine scrolled through the comments, half of them from Dana's book club crowd women with manicured bios and rehearsed compassion. She didn't comment. She didn't need to. Instead, she opened a new browser tab and typed in a name she hadn't typed in years. Flagstaff Museum of Western Art. Elaine's Buick was waiting in the driveway at exactly 3 p.m., engine humming like an overfed cat. "You sure you don't want to wear a scarf?" Elaine asked, eyeing the thinning green streaks in Lorraine's hair. "Might get cold in there." "They're about to stand in a gallery named after me," Lorraine said, slipping into the passenger seat. "They can handle some windburn." The museum was small but dignified, tall, arched ceilings. Sunlight filtered through frosted skylights, a scent of beeswax and old canvas. Lorraine's work had been tucked into a new, permanent exhibit, Interpretations of the American Frontier. One of her watercolors, a piece painted after her husband's funeral. All rusted fences and open sky was mounted under a brass plaque. Ashley arrived just before the docent started the tour. She looked younger in the museum, light and sure, maybe even a little impressed. "I didn't know you donated anything here," she said, stepping up beside her grandmother. "You never asked," Lorraine replied, a quiet amusement threading her words. Ashley stared at the plaque. "You used your maiden name," she said. "Wilder." "I never gave it up," Lorraine replied. "Just lent it to a man for a while." Ashley looked at her, something shifting in her expression. Not pity, not guilt, just recognition, like she was seeing someone for the first time after years of looking through them. In the museum cafe, Miguel slid a manila envelope across the table. "Everything signed and filed. The trust owns the house, the land, the water rights, and the easement road. If Travis wants to go hunting for assets, he'll get lost before he even finds the mailbox." Lorraine opened the folder and tapped the gold seal with her index finger. "Thank you," she said. Miguel smiled. "It's not just protection anymore, Lorraine. It's positioning." She folded the documents once, then again, tucking them into her purse like a loaded weapon. Just as she reached for her tea, her phone buzzed. Text from Travis. "Just checking in. You need help with bills?" Lorraine stared at it. She didn't type back. She just let the message sit there, blinking quietly on her screen, like a firefly trapped in glass. Then she locked the phone, set it face down, and said to Miguel, "I think it's time I bid on something." He tilted his head. "What kind of something?" Lorraine smiled, but only with her eyes. "A house." Lorraine found Travis already seated in her sunroom, legs spread wide like he owned the tile beneath his boots. A takeout cup sweated on her lace runner, and his sunglasses rested carelessly on top of her gardening catalog. She hadn't invited him. "You're home," he said, standing as if it were his house, his rhythm. "I let myself in. Ashley gave me the spare." Lorraine closed the front door behind her without a word. She walked past him, setting her handbag on the hall bench with deliberate care. The sun through the bay window lit up the green residue still clinging faintly to her roots. He followed her voice into the kitchen. "You've been dodging my texts," he said, too lightly. "That's not like you." Lorraine filled the kettle and turned it on. "I've been busy. Not that I owe you a schedule." Travis smiled like a man who believed charm was a currency that never expired. "I figured maybe we should talk, face to face. I brought some paperwork, just something I thought could help you feel more secure." He pulled a folded packet from his jacket and placed it on the counter like an offering. "Joint mortgage," he said. "Just to formalize things, help you manage expenses, keep everything clean." Lorraine didn't look at the papers. "You mean keep everything in your name if I die?" Travis laughed nervously. "Come on, Mom. It's not like that. I just want to help. You're not getting any younger. And I worry Dana worries. You don't worry, she said, her voice smooth as glass. You position. Travis's jaw twitched. I'm trying to protect the house. For the family. It's all I've ever wanted. She turned, cane tapping once against the floor. Then you should have thought about that before you forged my signature on a digital mortgage inquiry last month. His face froze. She let the words sink in like rot into soft wood. Miguel stepped in from the side door, unannounced but perfectly timed. He held up a printed audit trail, highlighting 2 login attempts and 1 completed form submission each tied to Travis's IP address. Lorraine didn't. Look at the papers. You mean keep everything in your name if I die? Travis laughed nervously. Come on, Mom. It's not like that. I just want to help. You're not getting any younger, and I worry Dana worries. You don't worry, she said, her voice smooth as glass. You position. Travis's jaw twitched. I'm trying to protect the house. For the family. It's all I've ever wanted. She turned, cane tapping once against the floor. Then you should have thought about that before you forged my signature on a digital mortgage inquiry last month. His face froze. She let the words sink in like rot into soft wood. Miguel stepped in from the side door, unannounced but perfectly timed. He held up a printed audit trail, highlighting 2 login attempts and 1 completed form submission each tied to Travis's IP address. Lorraine didn't flinch. You taught me how to use DocuSign. I just never told you I learned. The paper landed on the table with a rustle like dry leaves. Travis stared at it, eyes scanning for an escape that wasn't there. Miguel added, coolly. It's wire fraud, if you're wondering. Federal. And I've already secured a sworn affidavit verifying your mother was out of town that week. Travis stepped back like the room had tilted under him. His smile cracked, then vanished. You'd go this far? Over a stupid signature? Lorraine walked past him and lifted the lid on her teapot. Number I'm going this far because you didn't stop at 1. Later that evening, Elaine sat across from her in the living room, tablet in hand, her reading glasses sliding down her nose. It's officially on Flagstaff Satire Hour, she said, tilting the screen. They used the photo again. Gave you a fake band name Granny and The Inheritance. Lorraine blinked. Do I at least look like the lead singer? Elaine smirked. You look like you burned the stage down after the encore. A comment popped up at the bottom of the thread. Elaine tapped her keyboard quickly and posted under a pseudonym. Sometimes the punchline ends the whole act. They laughed. Ashley wandered downstairs an hour later, barefoot, hair still damp from a shower. She lingered near the kitchen, biting her lip. I think I overheard something weird, she said softly. Lorraine glanced over. They were in the guest room, Mom and Dad, whispering about how you've been declining. Like mental state stuff. Said something about talking to your doctor. Getting things evaluated. Elaine stood. Oh, hell no. But Lorraine raised a hand. Let her finish. Ashley hesitated, then added. They also mentioned the old baby monitor. The one they left here for when I used to nap over. Said it still works. Said you probably don't even realize it's on. Lorraine's expression didn't change. She stood slowly, walked to the hallway closet, and retrieved a slim black device. She held it in her palm like a delicate time bomb. The power light glowed faint red. I realized, she said simply. Elaine leaned in. You recorded it? Lorraine pressed play. Travis's voice crackled faintly from the monitor speaker. She's got no clue what's going on anymore. If we push hard enough, the court'll see that. Dana, all we need is a paper trail, 1 bad fall, 1 confused voicemail. Then Dana. And then we bring in a doctor who agrees with us, for her own good. Ashley looked like she might throw up. Lorraine simply turned the volume down and smiled not cruelly, but like a woman who'd just found the fuse. The morning after the recording, Lorraine sat at her desk with her laptop open, the baby monitor beside her like a witness in a deposition. She wore gloves, the kind she used to wear while handling archival manuscripts fitting, given what she was about to preserve. One by one, she downloaded the emails. Every thread, every polite manipulation disguised as family concern. Travis's request for her social security number under the pretense of refinancing help. Dana's passive-aggressive replies about scheduling someone to talk with her physician, just to make sure she's okay. A message with the subject line, drafting next steps legal, medical options. She didn't read them all in real time, just archived them into a zip file, encrypted it, and titled it with a name she'd never forget: Family Trust, Untrusted. She opened a clean email window and attached the file. To Miguel Renzo. Subject: For your records. Body: They've been planning this longer than I thought. Let's begin ours. She hit send. Elaine arrived mid-morning in her driving sweater and war mode attitude. Brought scones and my flatbed scanner, she said, holding up both like offerings. We're digitizing the receipts, right? Lorraine nodded, gesturing toward a box near the desk: legal papers, check stubs, insurance letters, and most importantly, her revised will. Elaine plugged in the scanner like it was a weapon and cracked her knuckles. If Dana wants to play Who Deserves What, we're about to show her how footnotes work. They spent 3 hours scanning. By the end, Elaine had uploaded everything to a password-protected folder on a separate drive, encrypted twice and disguised as a recipe archive. She labeled the root file, Family Pie, Do Not Edit. Lorraine arched an eyebrow. Elaine grinned. If they're going to snoop, they better bake. That evening, Lorraine sat quietly at Elaine's kitchen table as the women of the Pinewood Creek Book Club sipped wine around Dana, who was mid-story. So, the appraiser said the house alone is worth 7 figures, Dana said, eyes gleaming as she swirled her rosé. And that doesn't even include the property. It's wild, right? The women murmured appreciatively. One of them raised her glass. You guys are so lucky to have that in your future. Dana offered a coy shrug. Well, we've put in our time. Helped where we could. It's not about ownership, it's about legacy. Lorraine stood unnoticed in the kitchen entry, watching her daughter-in-law float through fantasy like it was already deeded in ink. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her silence was currency and she was saving every penny for the right moment. Ashley showed up that night, with a notebook in hand. Grandma, she said, softly but directly, can I ask you something weird? Lorraine was sitting by the fireplace, her feet tucked under a knit blanket, the framed photo still presiding like a totem above the mantel. Ashley sat down beside her. What actually happens to everything when someone dies? Lorraine tilted her head, watching her. I mean, everyone keeps saying you've got a will, but also that Dad's managing things already. And Mom talks like the house is basically hers. Lorraine pulled a slim binder from beneath the coffee table. She opened it slowly and placed it in Ashley's lap. The trust documents, the real ones. Ashley read silently for a few minutes. Her eyes widened. You already moved everything, she whispered. Lorraine sipped her tea. Of course. And it's protected. Like, it's all locked down? Lorraine nodded. Ashley looked up, confused but smiling. So then, why are they acting like they own it? Lorraine leaned in, her voice a thread of smoke. Because people who want power skip straight to the part where they've already won. Ashley stared at the pages, her thumb rubbing along the signature line. Lorraine added, watch who assumes they already own you. It's how they tell you they don't see you at all. That night, as the wind picked up outside and the old house creaked with the coming storm, Lorraine's phone buzzed. It was a message from Dana. Dana Merritt. Hey, we've noticed a few things around the house. The porch rail is loose, the gutters need clearing, and Travis says the insulation might be shot. Could you go ahead and get that fixed? It's just easier if you stay ahead of it. Right afore. Lorraine stared at the heart emoji for a long time. Then she opened a blank sheet of paper and began drafting a letter. The kind that starts with "to whom it may concern" and ends with a signature so sharp it might cut. The sound of Lorraine's heels tapping across the bank's marble floor drew a ripple of sideways glances. It wasn't just her arrival, it was her walk. No cane, no assistance, just the measured grace of someone who'd decided today was not the day to look fragile. Behind the counter, the young teller blinked, then adjusted her name tag like it was suddenly too tight. Good morning, Mrs. Merritt, she said, standing a little straighter. Would you like to take a seat? I can. No need, Lorraine said calmly, her voice smooth as glass. I'll stand for this. The manager was summoned, an older man in a striped tie and thin patience. Lorraine greeted him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I need to make several updates to my financial estate, she said. Today. Of course, he replied, motioning toward the private offices. Let's get you comfortable. I'm already comfortable, she cut in. Let's begin. Inside the glass-walled room, Lorraine removed a folded document from her handbag. placed it on the table, and began listing changes like someone reading from a well-rehearsed script. First, she said, remove Travis Merritt as emergency contact and cosigner from all account checking, savings, investments, and retirement instruments, retroactive as of this date. The manager blinked, but said nothing. She continued. Next, add Miguel Renzo as power of attorney for legal oversight, and Ashley Merritt as secondary on my healthcare and discretionary accounts. The teller who'd quietly joined them with a clipboard and wide eyes broke into a small, admiring smile. Power moves at any age, she murmured under her breath. Lorraine glanced at her and gave a single nod. Not of agreement, but acknowledgement. The kind you give someone who's still learning the difference. She opened her portfolio and pulled out a final sheet. And I'd like to open a new account. Personal use only. Unconnected to my trust. This one's mine. Alone. Any particular purpose? The manager asked. Lorraine allowed herself a small smile. Yes, she said. Clarity. Outside, the Arizona heat baked the sidewalk into a shimmer. Elaine stood at the curb, leaning against her car like an off-duty bodyguard. She wore sunglasses and held 2 iced T-zone with a lemon wedge, the way Lorraine liked it. I saw you through the glass, Elaine said as Lorraine approached. You look like you were closing on a Fortune 500 deal. Better, Lorraine replied, accepting the tea. I was closing on silence. Elaine handed her a manila envelope from the passenger seat. Lorraine opened it and pulled out the printed, notice-creased once down the middle, still smelling faintly of printer toner and photocopier warmth. Notice of trustee sale. Property address, 3825 Alder Ridge Drive, Ive. Former owners, Travis and Dana Merritt. Status, scheduled for public auction. Auction date, completed. Winning bid, confidential. Elaine raised an eyebrow. Still can't believe it. You bought their foreclosure. Quietly, Lorraine said. Through a holding entity Miguel registered in Nevada. Elaine took a sip of her drink, her eyes dancing. Poetry, she said. Absolute poetry. Lorraine stared down at the notice, her thumb grazing the embossed county seal. It wasn't about the house, she said. It was about their assumption, that I wouldn't see it coming. Elaine tapped the hood of her car. So, you ready to make the next move? Lorraine didn't answer right away. She set her tea on the roof of the car, opened her handbag, and pulled out a small black key fob with a barcode label still attached. It was the digital entry device for the lockbox on Alder Ridge Drive. She held it up to the sun and smiled. Lorraine stepped through the wrought iron gate of 3825 Alder Ridge Drive, Ive, with the quiet resolve of someone walking through the final frame of a painting she'd been studying too long. The gravel crunched beneath her Loafershire sensible pair. The ones Travis once told her made her look more grandmotherly. She wore them like armor. The grass had browned along the edges, curling in dry defiance. A wind chime clinked near the porch, slightly off-key. The welcome mat was crooked. She didn't ring the bell. She didn't even approach the door. Instead, she made a slow arc around the perimeter, pausing at the hydrangea bed Dana never learned to prune, eyeing the foundation crack Travis once promised he'd fix once the refinancing goes through. Lorraine ran her fingers along the brick. I remember when this place still smelled like fresh paint and impulse, she murmured. Elaine waited in the car at the curb, windows down, sunglasses on, watching like backup in a heist movie. Lorraine returned without a word, climbed in, and buckled her seatbelt. Well? Elaine asked, peeling away from the curb. Just confirming it's still standing, Lorraine replied. Won't be for long. 2 hours earlier, in a private legal suite 2 blocks from the Flagstaff County Courthouse, the foreclosure auction had moved along without fuss or spectacle. Miguel handled the bidding in person. Lorraine's sealed offer, submitted through the holding company, had been the only one meeting reserve. Clean, surgical, untraceable unless someone really knew what they were looking for. The clerk had slid her a stamped receipt. Final sale recorded. Buyer, Werg Mountain Holdings, LLC. She folded the paper into thirds, tucked it into her wallet, and didn't smile. Not yet. The next day, Travis came home to find a yellow flyer stuck in the crack of the mailbox. He pulled it out lazily with one hand, balancing a fast food drink in the other. Public notice. Trustee, sale confirmation. Properties at 3820 3832 Alder Ridge Drive, Ive. Finalized. Werg Mountain Holdings. Travis snorted. Another investor grabbing rentals, he muttered, tossing it on the kitchen counter beside a stack of unopened mail. Dana looked up from her laptop. Is it us? Nope, he said, already halfway to the fridge. Says 3,820 and 3,832. We're 3,825. Probably the old Anderson property, or those weird yellow duplexes down the hill. Dana shrugged. Hope they paint. That whole block looks sad. Neither of them noticed the fine print at the bottom. WRG Holdings now owns all parcels within Alder Ridge HOA boundary. That evening, Dana hosted one of her curated wine and wisdom dinners, a thinly veiled performance of elegance, sprinkled with backyard charcuterie and off-brand brie. The guests included a new couple from the development next door, a yoga instructor Dana pretended to tolerate, and a real estate agent who complimented the porch lighting 5 times. Dana clinked a fork against her glass. Here's to holding what you've earned, she said, and keeping things in the family. Everyone raised a glass. Travis leaned over and whispered, Pretty sure our equity is up too. We should get another appraisal before the market shifts. Already scheduled, Dana whispered back, smiling, into her rosé. In the center of the table, a candle flickered. In the guest bathroom, a crack near the window frame widened just a little more. Later that night, Lorraine sat on her back porch, wrapped in a shawl. Her phone buzzed beside her teacup. Ashley. Mom says someone's buying the block. Weird, right? She thinks it's some investor from Sedona. Says he'll probably flip everything in 6 months. Lorraine stared out across the tree line, her fingers tapping idly against the rim of the cup. A coyote called from somewhere distant. A wind passed through the junipers like breath held too long. She opened the message thread with Miguel, typed 1 sentence, and hit send. Let's schedule the locksmith. Then she reached into her side drawer and pulled out the property deed. Her thumb hovered over the embossed title, 3825, Alder Ridge Drive, Ive. Former owners, Travis Merritt, Dana Merritt. Current owner, Lorraine Wilder Merritt, via Werg Mountain Holdings. She whispered to the paper, You shouldn't have left the back door open. Ashley's hands curled around the teacup, fingers barely grazing the porcelain as steam curled upward, softening the space between them. The living room was quiet, except for the low tick of the mantel clock and the faint wind outside. Lorraine poured herself a second cup without asking. Mint and orange peel, she said. Good for clarity. Ashley nodded, but her eyes were already on the binder Lorraine had set before her. Thick, leather-bound, heavy enough to shift gravity in the room. I wanted you to see it before anyone else, Lorraine said. Ashley hesitated before flipping it open. Inside, copies of Lorraine's new will, amended trust documents, investment statements, legal filings with county stamps, all of it freshly notarized, arranged like a blueprint not just of wealth, but of intent. At the top, irrevocable trust beneficiary Ashley Wilder Merritt. Ashley's mouth parted, then closed. She looked up. Is this real? Lorraine took a sip of tea. I don't put fiction in print. But, I mean, why me? Ashley asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why not split it? With Dad and... Lorraine's expression didn't shift, but her gaze sharpened. Because they tried to steal it before I was even gone. She reached into the drawer of the side table and pulled out the baby monitor, still functional, still damning. She placed it beside the documents like evidence. They plotted to declare me incompetent, said I was confused, frail, that all it would take was a voicemail and a fall. Ashley looked down, ashamed. I heard parts of it. I didn't know how far. They wanted to inherit me before I died. Lorraine's voice was calm, almost clinical. But you listened. And when it counted, you asked the right question instead of assuming the answer. Ashley's eyes brimmed. Grandma? Lorraine leaned back, gaze fixed on the girl she once thought she'd lost to Travis's charm and Dana's curated fiction. You still think green is funny? She asked. Ashley shook her head, tears slipping down. Number. Not anymore. Lorraine reached over and covered her hand with her own. Good, because now it means something else entirely. Later that day, Miguel sat across from Lorraine in her study, typing quickly as the final digital signature came through. It's done, he said, flipping the screen toward her. Filed. Dated. Irrevocable. You can't even undo it now if you change your mind. Lorraine smiled faintly. Perfect. Miguel closed the laptop and leaned back. You're sure she's ready for this? That much weight? She's lighter than she thinks, Lorraine said. But she'll grow into it. On Sunday, the church brunch was held in the fellowship hall round tables, dressed with gingham cloths, and silent competition for who brought the best quiche. Lorraine wore a navy dress with white gloves. Elaine walked beside her like a sentinel. Dana was already there, dressed in peach and performance. She spotted Lorraine across the room and lit up like a stage bulb. "Oh, Lorraine!" she called, weaving her way through casseroles and whispers. "I've been meaning to catch up. I heard you were out and about getting so much done lately. Good for you." Lorraine turned, face neutral. Elaine stood still beside her. Dana added, leaning in slightly. "You know, if you ever need help with any paperwork, Travis is amazing with forms, and—" Elaine cleared her throat once, loudly. Behind her, two women from the choir, the kind who remembered when Lorraine taught art history in town, turned and narrowed their eyes. Lorraine didn't blink. "I have more than enough support, thank you." Dana's smile twitched. "Oh, well, good." She stepped back, realizing she was outnumbered. Maybe outclassed, definitely outmaneuvered. Elaine leaned in once Dana was gone. That felt better than it should have. That evening, Lorraine sat alone at her desk. She opened her personal Facebook account dormant for years and uploaded the framed photo. The one with the green hair, the fake laughter, the performance frozen in ink. In the caption field, she typed only 3 words: inheritance in living color. She clicked post. Within minutes, comments rolled in. Shock, support, confusion. One from Dana, passive and panicked. "Wait, what's this about?" Lorraine didn't reply. She just stared at the screen, waiting for it to reflect what it always had. Control? Lorraine parked 2 houses down from 3825 Alderidge Drive Ive and turned off the engine. The late morning sun had begun to cut through the pine haze, casting long, sharp shadows across the sidewalk. She sat in the driver's seat for a moment, her hands resting on the steering wheel like she was preparing for a final rehearsal. The street was quiet. Dana and Travis were in Sedona for the weekend. Couples Retreat Dana had hashtagged number reset, and Renewal Lorraine had no intention of waiting for a better window. She stepped out of the car slowly, locking it behind her with a click, and approached the house with the quiet certainty of a woman walking into a gallery that already bore her name. The hydrangeas were half dead. Again, trash bins leaned at odd angles in the side yard. She noted the missing piece of siding under the kitchen window, the sagging porch rail Dana had mentioned in her text. The mailbox had a rusted hinge and sagged open like a mouth caught mid-lie. Lorraine pulled out a small notepad from her coat pocket and began writing, "Porch rot, driveway cracks, HOA citation pending trash bins, front fence paint peeling." When she reached the front step, Elaine's SUV pulled in behind her. Elaine got out wearing oversized sunglasses and a grin. "Need backup for a victory lap?" Lorraine didn't look up. "I'm just cataloging the damages I've inherited." Elaine peered at the cracked paint on the door. "Maybe you should paint it green, for symmetry." Lorraine allowed herself the briefest smile. "Too poetic. I'm going for legal." From her bag, she pulled out a plastic envelope containing a lock replacement authorization signed and notarized by Miguel. A locksmith van pulled around the corner a minute later, punctual and expressionless. The young man tipped his cap as he approached. "Miss Merritt?" "Mrs. Merritt," she corrected. "Change them all, front and back. Deadbolts, too. I want proof of install and video documentation." Elaine leaned against the porch rail, arms crossed. "Do you always carry legal orders in your handbag?" Lorraine nodded, "since they tried to steal my house while smiling across the table." The locksmith set to work. His drill whirred, bolts loosened, metal clinked against concrete. Lorraine stood with a quiet, icy calm as each lock yielded to the new key. She didn't enter the house. Not yet. That would come later formally, and with proper cause. By the time the locksmith packed up, Lorraine had the updated deed, the install video, and 2 brand-new brass keys in hand. That afternoon, Miguel slipped the vacate notice into a padded envelope embossed with the bank's seal. The letter was simple and surgical. Per foreclosure proceedings and completed auction sale, WRG Mountain Holdings, LLC, represented by Lorraine Wilder Merritt, assumed legal title to the property known as 3825 Alder Ridge Drive, Ive. All occupants are hereby instructed to vacate the premises within 30 days from the date of this notice, per Arizona Code Section 33-1341. He slipped it into the outgoing legal mail bin and smiled as it landed. Lorraine had insisted on the official seal. "Let them feel the weight," she'd said. The next morning, Dana burst through the glass doors of the Alder Ridge HOA office, breathless and flushed. A clipboard-wielding woman in a floral blouse looked up from her desk, startled. "I need to speak with someone about our file," Dana snapped. "Someone made a mistake. There's a notice about our house that says it's not ours anymore, and it is. Obviously." The woman blinked. "What's the address?" 3825 Alder Ridge. She tapped on her keyboard. Her brow furrowed. She scrolled. Dana stood perfectly still, her purse hanging off one shoulder like dead weight. The woman looked up. "Actually, the records show the property is now listed under WRG Mountain Holdings, effective last Friday. That's confirmed by both county deed transfer and HOA registration. You're no longer listed as an owner." Dana's mouth opened, then closed. "That's impossible. That's our house." The woman smiled tightly. "It was, but it isn't." Dana stumbled back a step. "There has to be a mistake." The woman reached for the intercom. "Would you like me to print you a copy of the public record?" Dana didn't answer. She was already backing toward the exit, fingers gripping her phone like a lifeline, dialing furiously. At home, Lorraine poured herself another cup of tea, the deed lying open beside her. Her ringtone buzzed once. Twice then she silenced it. Control wasn't a word. It was a sound. Lorraine stood in front of 3825 Alder Ridge Drive, Ive, as the morning light filtered down through the pines, casting fractured shadows across the cracked concrete path. She wore a charcoal gray trench, no makeup, and the faintest tint of green still threaded through the ends of her hair like moss on old stone. In her hands, she held the now infamous framed family photo. Behind her, the house stood quiet, locked, claimed, hers. Ashley balanced a phone on a lightweight tripod, biting her lip as she framed the shot. "Are you sure you want to do this, Grandma?" Lorraine adjusted the frame in her hands and took one long breath. "Yes, but make it quick. I don't need multiple takes. I need memory." Ashley nodded, hit record, and stepped back. Lorraine stared straight into the lens. "I'm standing in front of a house I no longer need to fight for," she said, "because it's already mine. Just like the picture you laughed at. Just like the story you thought you'd written." She held the photo up, letting the sunlight catch the glare off the glass. "They dyed my hair green, called it a joke, framed it for laughs." She smiled, small, but sharp. "So I framed it too, for the record." She gave a slight nod to Ashley. "Done," she said. Ashley tapped the screen. "Posted." They walked away together, not looking back. Within hours, the video spread across every local Flagstaff community page and HOA Facebook group like wildfire through pine needles. Tagged and reshared. Liked. Duplicated. Captioned. Number Granny wins the block. Number Merritt vs. Merritt. Number Green Hair Revenge. A local satire page dubbed it Real Housewives of HOA County. Someone slowed her voice down and made a TikTok remix. Another stitched her speech with a video of a Monopoly board catching fire. Ashley scrolled through her phone and finally commented under the original post. She taught art history. They thought they'd rewrite hers. It exploded. The next morning, Miguel forwarded an email. Subject line, "Feature Opportunity KAZT, 7 News Phoenix." "Hi, Miguel. I'm a field reporter following a community property dispute story trending online involving a foreclosure, an inheritance trust, and a very iconic framed photo. Would Mrs. Merritt be open to an on-camera interview? Respectfully, Callie Rojas, Senior Field Producer, KAZT, 7. Lorraine read it twice, then smiled. She clicked forward and sent it to Elaine with the note. "Apparently the art speaks." Elaine replied 10 minutes later with a knock at the door and a gift. "Didn't trust email for this one," she said, handing over a wrapped book-shaped box with gold ribbon. Lorraine opened it slowly. Inside was a thick, hard-bound scrapbook with a custom-printed title. "Petty is an art form. Each page was a loving, sarcastic collage of the past few weeks' cutouts of Dana's book club posts, Miguel's legal notes, photos of the house and post-auction. There was even a screenshot of the meme that started it all, complete with glitter tape along the edge. Elaine pointed at the last page. It held a still from the video. Lorraine in front of the house, holding the photo like a closing argument. "Thought you should have your own version," Elaine said, "before the internet turns it into something stupid." Lorraine closed the book slowly, her fingers tracing the edge of the cover. "This," she said softly, "might be the first album that doesn't lie." Across town, Dana sat curled on the edge of her bed, the television off, the curtains pulled. Her phone buzzed relentlessly. Mentions, comments, reels. She swiped through them with growing horror. She clicked on Lorraine's video, watched it all the way through, twice. Then, silently, she opened her Instagram and deleted her last 6 posts. A few minutes later, she shut down her profile entirely. In the next room, Travis's voice boomed. "I'm not dealing with this circus." The sound of a drawer yanking open, a charger ripped from the wall. He deleted his Facebook, then Twitter, then everything else. Back at Alder Ridge Drive, Lorraine stood at her window, watching birds land on the fence she now owned. She opened her laptop and typed a new document title, "The Green Frame, a Memoir in Edges." She paused. Outside, a car slowed as it passed. Not Dana's, not Travis's, just a neighbor, slowing down out of respect. Or maybe curiosity. Didn't matter. Because now the photo wasn't just framed, it was public record. The courtroom smelled like old carpet and fluorescent nerves. Lorraine stood just inside the threshold, letting her presence settle before moving. She wore a tailored emerald green coat that hit just below the knee, the color deliberate and unapologetic. Her hair was brushed smooth, the last hint of green gone, but the memory of it hung over the room like smoke. Elaine squeezed her arm as they stepped forward together. "Looks like half the town showed up," Elaine whispered. Indeed, the gallery was packed. Book club women with tightly crossed legs, HOA presidents with their pens already out. 2 local reporters sat in the back row, one scribbling notes in short and D. Even the court clerk seemed to sit a little straighter as Lorraine walked to her seat. Across the aisle, Travis sat with arms folded and jaw clenched, his suit 2 shades too shiny and 1 size too tight. Dana perched beside him like a mannequin short on instructions. Their lawyer, a younger man with too much hair gel and not enough spine, whispered furiously as they glanced toward Miguel. Miguel sat at Lorraine's side, adjusting his glasses, calm as always. His leather briefcase rested at his feet, polished to a dull gleam. The bailiff called the court to order. Travis was the first to speak when the judge invited remarks. He stood too fast, like the floor might vanish beneath him. "This is insanity," he began, his voice half outrage, half disbelief. "My mother's been manipulated by this man, by her neighbor, even by my own daughter. She's not in her right mind. She's been broadcasting this circus online's landering us. This is elder abuse by way of petty revenge." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Are you finished?" "No," Travis snapped, then immediately tried to soften it. "I mean, Your Honor, this isn't just about property. This is about a betrayal of family. My wife and I were trying to help her manage her affairs." Miguel stood with practiced elegance. "Let's begin with definitions, Your Honor," he said, starting with fraud. He laid out the documents like dominoes. The fake mortgage inquiry, the revoked power of attorney forms, the digital footprint showing Travis had logged into Lorraine's accounts without consent. He pulled up the deed transfer history, the clean title filings, the certified appraisal, the notarized trust amendments, all executed with legal clarity and zero ambiguity. Dana sunk lower in her seat, but it was Lorraine who asked to speak next. She rose slowly, not frail, just deliberate. "I have one final piece of evidence," she said, voice clear as stained glass. "For the record." She opened her handbag and withdrew the baby monitor. A quiet hush fell over the gallery. Miguel placed a small speaker on the table. The judge nodded. Lorraine pressed play. Travis's voice emerged, distant but distinct. "She's got no clue what's going on anymore. If we push hard enough, the court'll see that. Dana, all we need is a paper trail. One bad fall, one confused voicemail. Then Dana's voice, tighter, rehearsed. And then we bring in a doctor who agrees with us, for her own good. The room went silent but for the faint whir of the ceiling fan. Gasps echoed. A woman in the back whispered, "My God." Travis stood. "That was taken without our knowledge. That can't." The judge lifted one hand, silencing him. "Everything I've heard," the judge said slowly, "supports the notion that Mrs. Merritt acted with full legal authority, foresight, and frankly, more restraint than most would have shown." She turned to Lorraine. "I see no basis for reversal of ownership, nor any evidence of coercion or diminished capacity. The estate plan stands. The foreclosure stands. The trust stands." Travis opened his mouth to object. The judge didn't look at him. "This court is adjourned." The gavel cracked once. It was over. Outside, on the courthouse steps, the sun was harsh and brilliant. Dana stormed ahead, face blotchy, ignoring the reporter who called after her. Travis lingered half a step behind, one hand on his phone, the other gripping a folder like it might save him. He turned once, saw Lorraine standing beneath the marble archway, untouched by the heat, untouched by any of it. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. Miguel adjusted his watch. Elaine lit a cinnamon mint between her teeth. "I hope they were hoping for a different ending," she muttered. Lorraine looked down the steps. "No," she said. "They never imagined it would end at all." Lorraine stood at the center of what used to be Travis and Dana's living room, now stripped bare to its bones. No furniture, no family portraits. Just raw drywall, peeled flooring, and light filtering in through the uncurtained windows like honesty finally making its way inside. Across from her stood two women in denim and work gloves, both from the Northern Arizona Renewal Network, a nonprofit that specialized in transitional housing for women leaving abusive situations. One held a clipboard. The other held her breath. "You're sure about this?" the younger woman asked. Lorraine nodded once, hand resting on the window frame. "This house was once built on arrogance and assumption. I want it rebuilt on something else. Something solid, something safe." The older woman blinked. "And you want to donate it outright?" "I don't want," Lorraine corrected softly. "I've already started." The next day, Miguel finalized the deed transfer. The papers bore both Lorraine's name and WRG Mountain Holdings, now listed as donor. The recipient, the Merritt House for Renewal. He slid the folder across the table, pausing only to make sure Lorraine's signature was clean, centered, and final. "You're setting fire to more than memory," he said, admiration quietly folded beneath his tone. Lorraine glanced at him. "Sometimes ash makes better soil." By the weekend, paint cans lined the front walk. Lorraine stood under the overhang of the porch as Ashley rolled a warm beige coat onto the siding. Elaine stood nearby, offering dry commentary and water refills. "I still think a mural would have been spicier," Elaine muttered. Ashley grinned, dipping her roller again. "We're saving spice for the inside." She turned back to the house, brushing a final coat over one of the shutters. "Except this one," she said, moving to a narrow, square window at the far end of the porch. She dipped her brush into a rich forest green and began painting its frame. Lorraine watched. "Legacy window?" Ashley nodded. "Not just for you. For me, too." Dana showed up the next afternoon, sunglasses too large and voice too brittle. She didn't get out of her car, just rolled down the window while Ashley loaded painting supplies into the back of Elaine's SUV. "Ashley," Dana called, tight smile affixed like an old mask. "Can we talk?" Ashley didn't look up. "We're working." Dana's voice softened, syrupy, brittle. "I just don't understand. We're still family. And she, your grandmother, she's taken everything. That house was our future. Yours, too." Ashley walked toward the window slowly, wiping her hands on a paint rag. "No, Mom. You framed her. Now she framed you." Dana flinched. "That's not fair." Neither was planning her funeral while she was still drinking tea. Dana didn't reply. She rolled the window up and drove off slowly, eyes flicking once to the green window as she passed. The morning of the shelter's opening, Lorraine arrived before anyone else. She carried two things, a plaque, engraved and polished, and the now iconic photo in its gold frame. Elaine met her on the porch and took the plaque from its velvet wrap. "The Merritt House," it read, in deep serifont. Below it, "For Renewal." "I thought it should say something honest," Elaine said. Lorraine nodded. "And redemptive." Inside, the entryway had been cleared. A a fresh coat of cream across the walls. Lorraine stepped to the far wall and hung the photo herself. The woman in the frame still had green in her hair, still stood stiffly amid false smiles, still carried the weight of 100 assumptions. But beneath the photo, on a hand-lettered placard, Lorraine had added her own caption, "Begin again." As she stepped back to examine it, volunteers arrived. So did local press. So did a social worker with a girl barely 20, holding everything she owned in 2 plastic grocery bags. Lorraine turned to greet her. "You're early," she said gently. The girl looked up. Is this where I start over?" Lorraine stepped aside, hand motioning toward the open door. "No," she said. "It's where you walk in, already belonging." Lorraine poured the tea slowly, letting the steam rise between them like fog clearing over water. Across the small round table, her sister Jean wrapped her hands around the ceramic mug without speaking. It had been years stew, many filled with distance and barely there holiday calls. But today, the silence was different. Not heavy, just overdue. Jean pulled a faded photo from her purse and set it on the table. 2 girls barefoot in a creek, summer sun bleaching their shoulders. Lorraine picked it up with a soft smile. "I remember that day," she said. "You dared me to catch a fish with my bare hands." Jean laughed, low and surprised. "You actually did it." "I dropped it right after." Jean nodded. "But you caught it." They sipped in rhythm, the years between them folding in like pages reread for the first time. No apology Kaminow outright, but then some things didn't need to be said when they'd already been outlived. "I heard about the house," Jean said finally. Lorraine shrugged. "I donated it." Jean blinked. "Of course you did." They smiled. In the foyer of the Merritt house, Ashley stood in front of the freshly painted wall, positioning a new frame between 2 pendant lights. Inside was a color photo Lorraine, seated among a pile of handwritten letters from women the shelter had served in its first month. Some scrawled in cursive, others blocky and hesitant, all saying some variation of the same thing, "Thank you." Ashley stepped back to admire it, then reached into her bag and taped a typed label underneath. "Legacy isn't something you leave. It's something you light." Lorraine saw it later that evening. She didn't say anything, just stood in front of it for a long time, letting it land. Miguel arrived the next day, carrying a slim black box. He handed it to Lorraine like a ceremony. Inside, nestled in cream velvet, was a handmade shadow box frame. On the left side, the foreclosure notice greased and stamped. On the right, the vacate letter Dana had once read with fury. Between them, a green thread woven like a border. At the bottom, engraved on brass, proof that endings can be art. Lorraine ran a finger along the edge of the glass. "You know this makes you a sentimental lawyer." Miguel smiled. "Just a well-documented one." Later that week, Elaine arrived with her tablet and a folder under one arm. "We're doing a gallery," she announced, breathless. "Title, color, family, and grace. It'll feature original work, legal ephemera, and obviously, the photo." Lorraine raised an eyebrow. "Legal ephemera?" Elaine tapped the folder. "Everything you didn't burn. Contracts, letters, even the baby monitor. It's all part of the exhibit. If they wanted a legacy, we'll show them what one looks like under proper lighting." Lorraine chuckled. "You're dangerous with lamination. I'm lethal with curation." The house quieted in the afternoon, golden light pooling on the hardwood floor. Lorraine sat at her desk with her laptop open, fingers poised above the keyboard. The title on the first page blinked back at her. "The Green Frame. A Memoir in Edges." She didn't type yet. She just stared at the title, let it breathe. Outside the window, the front garden was blooming. The hydrangeas revived with help from the shelter. Volunteers stood defiantly in the soil Dana once ignored. Lorraine reached for her phone. In the sunlit hallway, just beneath Ashley's framed photo and across from the new entry plaque, hung one of Lorraine's own paintings. An abstract mix of horizon lines and fractured shadows, with a single sharp stroke of emerald cutting diagonally through the center. She turned the phone toward herself and took a selfie. Her face was soft, peaceful, the green in the background now intentional. She looked at the photo, then saved it. She didn't post it. Not yet. Some endings don't need applause, just proof. But upstairs, a voicemail buzzed in unknown number, a voice she hadn't heard in decades. "Hi, Lorraine. It's about your ex-brother-in-law." He saw the article, and he's got questions. Lorraine's lips parted slightly. She tapped the message once, saved it, then closed her laptop without typing a word. The gallery doors opened with a quiet click, and light spilled across polished concrete floors, catching on metal frames, handwritten captions, and the echo of small laughter in hushed tones. Lorraine stood just inside the entrance, sipping from a stemless wine glass, wearing black with a single emerald brooch at her collar. The air smelled like paint, lavender, and a little anticipation. At the center of the main wall hung the photo. The photo. Lorraine, hair green, smile stiff, framed like a joke meant to echo through time. It hadn't been cropped, hadn't been softened or corrected. The green was loud, defiant, unashamed. A placard beneath it read, "The first brushstroke." Guests circled it like it held gravity. A few whispered. Some smiled knowingly. One woman gasped, then grinned. Elaine stood off to the side, watching the crowd like a proud curator hair swept up, clipboard in hand, and reading glasses perched like a crown. "Everyone thinks this is a revenge show," she said to Miguel, who stood beside her in a navy blazer. "But it's really just a woman's autobiography, with better lighting." Miguel sipped his wine. "And ironclad citations." Near the front, a podium stood ready. Ashley motioned to Lorraine gently. "They're ready for you." Lorraine approached with unhurried grace. She didn't clear her throat. She didn't adjust the mic. She simply opened her memoir and began to read. There is a point in every story where dignity must separate itself from silence. Not because one is more powerful, but because the pause between them is how you know you've outlived the noise. The room held its breath. "I wasn't reborn when I fought back. I was reborn when I stopped needing to explain." Applause came, warm and sustained. Afterward, several guests approached her curious, respectful. One woman in a red scarf asked, "Why leave the photo unedited? You could have restored it, made it softer." Lorraine smiled gently, gesturing toward the wall. "It was their brush," she said. "I chose the canvas." Just then, outside the gallery window, two figures moved past the sidewalk lighting Travis and Dana. Their silhouettes paused, looking in but staying just beyond the glass. He wore a wrinkled blazer. She wore sunglasses, though it was nearly dusk. Neither entered. They just watched. Lorraine turned away, unbothered. She clinked her glass gently against Elaine's. Elaine raised an eyebrow. "Framed just right." Lorraine nodded. "Precisely." Ashley came to stand beside her. Her hair was pulled into a loose braid, one thin green ribbon woven through it. She leaned in, voice soft. "You didn't erase them," she said. "You painted past them." Lorraine looked at her granddaughter, no longer naive, no longer silent. "Exactly," she said. As the evening wore on, music drifted in soft waves across the space. People lingered beside each artifact, the baby monitor in a plexiglass case, the foreclosure notice in the shadow box, handwritten quotes blown up on linen banners. In the far corner, the painting Lorraine had created the abstract with the single green slash hung under a spotlight. Some viewers assumed it was about anger, others, restoration. Only Lorraine knew it was both. As the last guests filtered out, Ashley approached with one final request. "Selfie?" she asked. Lorraine smiled. "Of course." They stood side by side in front of the green hair photo, faces glowing in gallery light. Ashley lifted her phone, and just before she clicked the shutter, Lorraine leaned in and whispered the caption. Later, on Ashley's page, the image appeared with that same line typed beneath it. "They dyed my hair green, but I made it evergreen."